like I said, it was a bit confusing for me. Um, and I think, like Reed Moore said, I think it's meant to be confusing. I don't, yeah. Okay. Well then, I guess I'll. If nobody has anything else to say about that, the the link or the page in your leisure if you'd like. Or yeah. So I had originally opened up this space because I thought I every time I open up the code book, I was going through the code book not too long ago, Mr. Fuller's code book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, or the short title, the code. I was going through it, and every time I opened it up, something, all, everything, something in there felt like I was learning something new. So I went through it, and I saw the law of compensation, and I was reading through it, and I thought I'd like to discuss the law of compensation for people who've read it, kind of exchange views, have a conversation about it. Uh, but the law of compensation. So when I'm talking about the law of compensation, I'm talking about it in regards to Mr. Fuller's code book and what he has written in there. I had some thoughts about it and how I interpret the law of compensation. Wanted to get others' views on the law of compensation as well. So that was the purpose of me opening up the space. I also a clip of Mr. Fuller talking about the law of compensation from April 26, 2017. So if you go on YouTube, you can type in law of compensation, Mr. Fuller. A lot of different things will come up. But on page 40 in the revised expanded edition, that's where you'll find Mr. Fuller talking about the law of compensation. If anybody would like the mic, go ahead and just request it, and I'll make sure to get it to you. So I'll start off by just reading a bit of the code book, what it says about the law of compensation. Again, this is on page 40 in the revised expanded edition. So it says the law of compensation, three basic steps towards racial subjugation compensation. 1. Ask for what should be given. 2. Accept what is granted. 3. Compensate for the difference. In parentheses, it says between what was asked for and what was granted. So the first thing that kind of jumps out to me is racial subjugation compensation. So I understand that to be what for those victims of racism, white supremacy, under a system of racism, white supremacy, what they should be doing to compensate for that racial subjugation. So, being victims of racism, white supremacy, what each individual victim of racism or non-white person should be doing to compensate for that racial subjugation. Explanation, it says, ask for what should be given. This means that non-white people should ask the white supremacists, racists, to reveal truth, not just facts, and to produce justice and correctness in all things at all times in all areas of activity. Ask for what should be given. Those white people who practice white supremacy racism have established and maintained the practice through falsehood, non-justice, and incorrectness. Therefore, the revelation of truth plus the production of justice and correctness can best be established by first eliminating white supremacy and replacing it with thought, speech, and action that uses truth in such a manner that justice and correctness is produced. That is what should be asked for. Hmm. I'm just reading over it again, just to make sure I got it. So first, ask for what should be given. So ask for what you, as an individual victim of racism, need to. Sorry. What you, as an individual victim of racism, non-white person, need to produce justice and correctness in all things at all times in all areas of activity. I'm hoping I'm understanding that correctly. If if not, please hop in. But okay, then the second basic step says accept what is granted. Oh, and those who are just joining, I'm reading from the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the code book for short. I'm reading from page 40 of the Revised Expanded Edition. We're talking about the law of compensation. So I read the first basic step. I'm reading the second one. So accept what is granted. This means that since it is the white supremacists who are supreme over all non-white people, facts, of the known universe in all areas of activity, it is therefore correct for the victims of white supremacy, non-white people, to accept whatever the white supremacists choose to grant them that is of constructive value. So I mean that could be a range of different things, and it's interesting who determines what is of constructive value, the white supremacist or the individual non-white person. Are they the ones that decide if that is of constructive value, or is it the white supremacist? Uh, as I understand it under system, non-white people, victims of racism, are constantly having to ask for things to compensate, things to survive, and the white supremacist, more often than not, does not give them what they have asked for. Instead, gives them maybe bits and pieces of what they've asked for, and it is up to non-white people to compensate for the rest. I'll continue reading. The non-white people of the known universe have nothing that is not subject to the power of the white supremacists. I'll just read that again. The non-white people of the known universe have nothing that is not subject to the power of white supremacists, meaning anywhere non-white people are on the planet, they are subject people to the white supremacists. That's how I interpret that. Therefore, the non-white people should accept whatever the white supremacists give to them that is of constructive value, even if that which is granted is less than that which was asked for. So basically, being in the pitiful position that non-white people are under a system of injustice or system of racism, white supremacy, we must accept that which is granted, even if it was less than what was asked for. As long as that which is granted is less than that which was asked for, non-white people should continue to ask for that which should be granted, namely the revelation of truth and the establishment of justice and correctness in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war/counter war. So I think what the important piece of that last part was to ask for that which should be granted, namely the revelation of truth and the establishment of justice and correctness in all areas of activity. A good question for Mr. Fuller that I would have for him is whether people should only be asking for the revelation of truth and establishment of justice and correctness. Um, I think in my view, it would be ideal to ask for the revelation of truth and the establishment of justice and correctness, just because I feel that that would be of much more constructive value than anything else the white people who practice racism could provide, other than a system of justice, I guess. The last piece, the last of the three steps, is compensate for the difference. This means that after the victims of white supremacy, non-white people, have asked repeatedly for what should be given, and after they accept what was granted, they should study what was granted to see if it is the same as what was asked for. I think, and that is a really important, in my view, that's a really important, another really important piece, because the white supremacist is constant. If their main tactics are deception and the threat of violence, deceit through words, or plain out deception, I don't really see any difference. They will often give non-white people things and cover it up as if it was what they asked for. I can't think of any specific example right now, but I know a good example. So independence. When I think about independence on for the people, for the non-white people who were colonized, when they asked for independence, it was viewed as if the white people have left. They no longer are directly controlling the governments, so-called governments of those places on the planet. But when it was studied, and as it has been studied, it's not exactly what was asked for. That's my view on that. Uh, Continuing, and if anybody wants to speak, raise your hand. You know, you don't gotta listen to me talk the whole time. If what was granted was not the same, let me start over. If what was granted was not the same as what was asked for, non-white people should then speak and act to compensate for the difference between what was asked for and what was granted. They can do this by thinking, speaking, and acting according to a code of behavior that promotes the revelation of truth and the use of truth in such a manner that justice and correctness is produced in all areas of activity. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Everybody's getting an invite to speak. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So, three basic steps: ask for what should be given, accept what is granted, compensate for the difference. Uh, yeah, does anybody have any thoughts on what's been read, what's been said? Any thoughts on the law of compensation?
Well, I don't want you to be in the room talking to yourself. I don't know why nobody else is speaking. So, one of the questions that you said would be a good question for Mr. Fuller. Um,
Let me see.
about um,
Who?
Should non-white people only be asking for the revelation of truth and the establishment of justice? I don't think so. I think in reference to racial subjugation compensation, yes. You know, you have to look at, the heading of what you're reading that under,
Hmm.
right? But you have any non-white person is qualified to ask for anything of constructive value, even if they're not asking for the establishment of justice. That's why I don't take issue with the non-white people who are asking for reparations, because that ain't gonna give you the establishment of justice. But non-white people are qualified to ask for that. So the person who decides what is and is not of constructive value is the person who is in need, the person who's asking. So you'll ask a racist suspect, you know, um, to establish justice, and they won't give you anything. So you've covered, ask for what, you know, you've covered number one and number two,
Hmm.
ask for what you need, basically, and accept what they give you, which is nothing. Okay, so then what do? Then you compensate for the difference. Um, you might ask for two cars, for example, and they give you a bicycle, you know. So now what do you have to do? So now you have to go about the business of trying to compensate for the fact that you were not given two cars in the best way that you can. You don't want to do anything that's going to you know, wind you up in greater confinement, because that ain't going to be compensation for nothing. But
True.
then you go about the business of doing what you need to do to get two cars. The people who are doing the reparations work, they're a prime example. And I'm telling you, they're working on it. And I'm following a lot of those people, and they're having meetings and, with the governor and all kinds of different things. It's not focused in a manner that, they use crisp, sharp language all the time. And a lot of the people are all over the place, just trying to find out, trying to figure out what is it that I need to do? Who is it do I need to see in order to get reparations? What kind of papers do I need to sign? How many marches do I need to have? How many rallies do I need to have? We all over the place trying to figure it out. But we're doing the work. Non-white people, they're doing the work. So you can't knock that. They asking for what they should receive, because they should receive that. We should live in a world where so many people are in need. The world's not supposed to work that way. It works that way because of the system of racism, white supremacy. It's a perversion of how things are supposed to be. And they probably won't receive nothing. or if they do, it won't be what they asked for.
Hmm.
So then they have to go about the business of compensating. Law of compensation is not, it's not difficult to understand, and it applies to everything, right? So you go to school, for example, to get something that you don't have. Law of compensation, making up for what's missing,
Hmm.
right? You need that knowledge. So you have to compensate in order to gain that knowledge. So you go to school to compensate for the lack of knowledge that you have. Um, you're running for the bus, right? You're compensating by running for the bus because you're not on the bus and the bus is getting ready to leave. So you that is the law of compensation as well. You're going to get something to eat. You're compensating for the lack of food that's in your belly. That's the law of compensation. Anything that you are doing to make up for something that you don't have, that you should have, is the law of compensation. The part of the book that you read is focused on racial subjugation compensation.
Hmm.
That's why you ask for the revelation of truth and the establishment of justice so that you can get out from under being racially subjugated. And you probably won't get nothing, but that don't mean you shouldn't ask for it. You ask for it, with the expectation that you probably ain't gonna get nothing. you know. But you still gotta ask, right?
Hmm.
You still gotta ask. Back in the day, they had an old saying: it was a closed mouth won't get fed."
Hmm.
Right? I mean, you have to ask for that food. You have, otherwise you will go hungry. Asking for something that you don't have that you should have is an act of compensating for the lack of not having it. It's real simple. It's not complicated. So if you think about it in those terms, then I think you may be able to better understand it. I'm off the mic.
Thank you, CR. Yeah, the running for the bus uh, analogy you gave. When I think about the law of compensation, an important part of compensating is doing the work, like you mentioned. So when you do the work, then you're compensating for what you don't have. And I would like to say that the universe will, when you figure it out and you do it correctly, I suppose, will reward you for the work, will compensate you for the rest. So running for the bus, you gotta work to run for it because you're missing it, and the reward is that you made the bus. That it doesn't always work out that way, but that's the hope, I guess. Um, so the law of compensation, when I think about it as one of those things that came with the universe, the law of compensation, and people have been compensating there forever. You're given these items in the universe, trees. You tear down these trees to make a basket. You're compensating for what you don't have by creating the basket. Um, I hope I'm not butchering that example, but using what you're provided, accepting what was given, and compensating for the rest. So compensating is always happening every day at all times. The other part that you also talked about was the racial subjugation compensation. Now, I would like to be able to explain that as easily and as clearly as possible what it means to compensate for racial subjugation. Now, what I believe you were saying was compensating to get out of being racially subjugated. You've identified that you are racially subjugated. Now you're asking to no longer be racially subjugated, accept what is given, which will probably be nothing, and then compensate by working to get to no longer be racially subjugated.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. In other words, you go through the process of producing justice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you ask for justice. They, the racist suspects will give you um, the the ability to eat in the same restaurant with them. Right. Now that ain't justice, you know, but they'll give you that. I don't know if you guys weren't around back in those days. I wasn't even around in a lot of those days, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but when they had people standing on street corners with signs, right? I'm not going to talk long because I see Dr. CNQ has his hand up. They had people on street corners with signs saying no justice, no peace. So the racist suspects say, oh, okay, 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 okay. Let them eat at the same restaurant. When they did that, the signs went down.
Mm-hmm.
See, so the racist suspects say, oh, okay, they think that's justice then. Then the signs went back up, right? No justice, no peace, blah, 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 burn this place down,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, police officers beating people, killing people, people on the street sign on the street corners with signs, no justice, no peace. Okay, let them join the police force. Then the signs went down. See,
Mm-hmm.
so from the racist suspect perspective, they see non-white people. Oh, so they must think access to something equals justice. Because every time we give them access to something, the signs go back down.
Mm-hmm.
See that experiment? They running experiments all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So those signs should have never went down. They should be up 24/7, 365. I mean, for the last 1,000 years. But that is how they think about what they see us doing. Let me get off the mic. Dr. CQ has something to say.
Go ahead, Dr. Sinkyu.
Um, Yeah, I think I should have took the hand down because Mr. Williams said something similar to what I was going to say. Um,
I'm sorry about that.
oh, no, hey, no problem, no problem at all, sir. As long as the information is constructive for those who aren't aware of it, um, I don't care. Um, there was something else you said that made me think about something else though, because it seemed to me that uh, every time there's well, no, I guess what needs to keep happening is yeah, exactly what you said. We just need to everybody just needs to keep asking. I know I was going to say that it looks like so justice compensates for injustice. Um, but in the meantime, while while we keep asking for justice to compensate for injustice, there's other things that need to be solved or other problems that need to be solved, and that's what the law and compensation does or follows. It, yeah, I lost track because it seems to me that following the law of compensation is how problems get solved. Um,
Hmm.
when if there's something is lacking, so at some point in time there was a time there had to be a time when there was no chairs, right? But
Hmm.
at some point in time, someone found it constructive to have a chair. So someone built a chair, or more than one person built a chair. I like the idea that knowing the law of compensation does. I'm glad that it's in the code because for myself, I never thought about how problems were solved until I read the law of compensation, right? Because then I was able to see how people came up with fire, how people came up with you know lights or light bulb, or uh, all these different inventions that exist. And uh, since I mentioned inventions, I do believe that it's kind of a diversion for many of us to uh, what am I trying to say? Be proud or or take attempt to take credit for other black people who have made inventions to compensate for what was lacking. And I think that if more of us understood that law of compensation, then we would be able to um, solve more of our own problems in the process of establishing justice. That's it.
Wow. Uh, I I liked what you said. Thank you for sharing, Doctor. Thank you. I liked what you said about justice compensating for injustice. I, if it's not too much to ask for, could you elaborate a little bit more about that, if you're able to?
Elaborate. Okay, so um, right now, well, and I could take that back to something that Mr. Williams was saying about, um, and I can't even, I have to paraphrase, but he said something about like, how everybody is lacking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
most of the people on the planet are lacking in uh, you know the basic, the very basic necessities for survival.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has to depend on the system. Everybody has to depend on how the racist white supremacists set up the system in order to survive. So, to me, an example of justice could be, for example, there's enough land for everybody on this planet to have. Everybody on this planet. There should not be any person on this planet without adequate shelter, because there's enough land on the planet for everybody. Right? When I think about, every single person on this planet that's breathing right now is standing somewhere on the planet. They're standing on some land somewhere on the planet. So there's enough land for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the injustice that makes it not be um, adequate land for everybody. It's the injustice that makes that, because the racist white supremacists have made borders, and made all these different uh, you know social constructs of contracts, and fences, and all this kind of stuff. And these are my trees, these are my apples, these are my oranges, rather than uh, leaving the food that's on the planet, and the land on the planet, and the water on the planet, just making that be for everybody. So I would say an example of justice, of compensating in the line of land, would be making sure that everybody on the planet has some land.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay. Miss CR.
Oh, yes, sir. Just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Dr. CNQ was saying. I read a statistic recently that said, if you can believe statistics at all, but I read a statistic recently that said that all the people on the planet can fit into New York.
Mm.
Can you believe that?
I.
Statistics are difficult enough to believe,
Mhm.
you know, they're difficult to believe, but that one is just mind blowing, right? So I definitely agree with what you said, Dr. CNQ, about the land. There used to be speaking on, people lacking, there used to be a website called globalrichlist.com. They shut it down. Global Rich List, where you can put in your salary, and it would tell you your annual salary, and it would tell you um, where you are, in terms of being impoverished or being rich, where you would rank among all of the people on the planet. And I used to go on that website periodically. There's a different one now that does the same thing. I'll have to get the URL for it, but I, I would go on to this website and put in different amounts, just to see how much money you had to make in order to be in the top 1% of all the people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any idea, You know, how much money you have to make in the United States, the United States dollar, quote unquote. How much money you have to make annually to be in the top 1% of all the people on the planet. I'm going to tell you, but I want to know if anybody has any idea, any guesses.
My guess would be somewhere in the billions.
1 million, 2 million. What do you
I'd
think?
say top 1% and on the planet. I'm gonna say like maybe 1 billion with a B.
1 billion.
Yeah.
Hmm. Anybody else?
I think I remember hearing about this, and it was significantly less. I just don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, significantly less.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
even think it was in the millions.
Oh man.
right, right. So it's
Wait a minute.
35. It's $35,000.
No. No.
What?
No way.
No.
Yeah, $35,000. If you make $35,000 a year, U.S. dollars, you are in the top 1% of all the people in the world. We're talking about 8 billion people. $35,000. Probably everybody in this room, in this Twitter space right here, is in the top 1%. Can you
Wow.
imagine how much poverty there is on this planet amongst the 8 billion people, that you can just make $35,000 a year, US dollars, and be in the top 1%? I mean, you talk about people not having what they should have. So compensation, that's the reason you have to accept what's granted, which probably ain't going to be much. But then you have to go about the business of trying to produce what it is that you don't have, what it is that you're lacking, that you should have. So I just wanted to say that, piggybacking on what Dr. Sinki was saying. I'm off the mic.
Wow. I would have never guessed $35,000 top 1%. Um, yeah, I'm extremely confused. I'm still learning. That was an astonishing amount. Go ahead, Dr. Senkyu.
Yeah, I'm confused too. I'm really confused about that. I tried to look up I looked up the website that you mentioned, and I see Global Rich List is a domain name, is open for somebody to buy. But it says here, there's something else here that says, how rich am I? Giving what we can. And that appears to be a site that's similar, where you can put in your income, and then it'll tell you where you are compared to the global. Um, so I just wanted to state that in case somebody wanted to go check that website out.
Yeah, I think that's the other one. I think that's the other one I was talking about. Thank you. Thank you for looking that up. Um, yeah, so you can do it on that website as well. Yeah, they shut that global rich list down. It's a lot of websites that pop up from time to time that they shut down. The CIA used to have a website. So
Wait, was that the this? Oh man, I can't believe the CIA World Fact List.
yes, yes, that was it.
The World Fact List. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of information from that site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now they'll, feed off some information at every now and then. They recently said that now there are more people in India than there are in China.
What? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. This is a recent thing. I mean, this year it happened this year. So they were talking about this miracle baby, that was born, and the reason it was a miracle baby, it was an Indian baby, a baby born in India. He said this baby has made, has crossed the threshold. you know, Now, because this baby was born, there are more people in India than there are in China. So there's a lot of people on the planet, and it's a lot of people without. There's a lot of people lacking. There's a lot of people trying to compensate for a lot of different things. I'm off the mic.
Yeah, I feel like I may have stumbled on that, and it reminds me of all recently today. I think I saw a tweet about white racist suspect talking about population collapse, but yeah, I'm sure most of us in here know that or suspect at least that's not true. Um, yeah, I think I also saw something about China, their population dwindling too, but that's something else. So just kind of going back to the justice and injustice and how it compensates. So the way I understand it now is the way justice compensates for injustice. Injustice reveals what is just and correct. So by injustice just existing on the planet, it's, I don't want to say easy, but it's using logic. You can understand what is just and correct or what should be happening. We can understand that the injustice that, at least me, I understand that the injustice that is happening shouldn't be happening, and this is what should be happening. So I could see it in that way how justice compensates for injustice. So thank you for that.
It's
The Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say it's a basic law of the universe, right? For every action, there's an opposing and equal reaction. That's a basic law of the universe.
Hmm.
One of the laws of physics, they say, quote unquote, laws of physics. So all you have to do is get an effective number of, or I used to call it something different, but I'll go with effective number right now. A substantial number is what I used to call it. A substantial number of people who are going through the process for compensating for the lack of justice, going through the process to produce it, because it can be produced. Yeah, it's a basic law of physics. Um, Going through the process to produce justice, and eventually it will be produced. I'm off the mic.
Dr. Sinq?
Yeah, and adding kind of using CR's words, piggybacking off of what he's saying, I found that effective number or substantial number is, I believe that the reason why we haven't reached that number is because there's not enough people on the planet who believe that, well, first, there's not enough people on the planet who have a definition of justice or even have really even thought of what justice is. And then at the same time, you know, even if you reached, I guess this is a theory here, but it seems to me that if we had enough people on the planet who actually had a definition of justice, then would be, you know, getting enough people to have the will to establish it, right? Or the will to want it to be here. You know, if we're looking at history, it's the racist white supremacists who it also appears they strongly believe in injustice. Like it's like uh, kind of attached to a way of power for them. So the problem seems to be getting to that substantial number or getting to that effective number, which to me is where, like, we would need to have more of us, you know, more people on the planet, you know, on all the social media, out in the streets, everywhere. Saying we need justice. Thanks.
Agreed. That's one, you know, one thing that I guess in the past has been frustrating for me, especially when I was introduced to the code, um, introduced to, you know, the logic, and others have helped me understand, but really understanding that the only way, at least in my view, the only way to produce justice is to produce that system of justice. Let me try to make it more clear. The only thing you can do about the injustice on the planet is to produce a system of justice and to be working towards producing that system of justice. Not, you know, trying to get everyone can marry whoever they want. Not giving one area on the planet more money than the other, but really focusing on producing that system of justice. The goal should be to produce justice, and at least in my view, anything other than that is not really going to help solve this problem or prevent it from going on forever. I hope that was clear. So yeah, that's that goes back to having that effective number of people, because it did used to frustrate me seeing people. I mean, we're all confused victims, so I'm not going to keep going on that. But the next thing that I wanted to, I guess, talk about in regards to the law of compensation was, in some ways, forcing the white supremacists to using the law of compensation to force the white supremacists to produce justice. And I'll to provide some more context. Um, when I was watching Dr. Sinq, when you were, I guess, having that discussion with the racist suspect, and everyone, please go check out Dr. Sinq's YouTube channel. when you were having that discussion with the racist suspect, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm sure I'm on point with it. Is drop when you guys were discussing the I think who killed the most people on the planet, or who's killed the most people on the planet. He was saying Genghis Khan killed so many people. Then you brought up the white people dropping an atomic bomb on non-white people, and I mean that's something that's never been done before. Uh, I don't think anybody tops that in my view. So I agree with you on that. But then he said that dropping the bomb on non-white people was morally justified, and I keep saying I shouldn't be surprised, but it was surprising that I mean it's not, I've heard people say stuff like that, but it got me thinking, do the white people who practice racism, do they even believe that racial subjugation, slavery are even things that are incorrect, that shouldn't have happened on the planet? If they believe that dropping a bomb on non-white people who have nothing to do with the conflict is morally justified, does that do those people also believe that they should compensate you for your racial subjugation? So that was something that I thought about. So when I say using the law of compensation to force the white supremacists to produce justice, and I hope this is the law of compensation, but I one question I thought of, just to kind of help myself, is asking a racist suspect whether or not they believe racial subjugation, slavery was incorrect. I feel that having an answer to that question, for me personally, would reveal a lot about that racist suspect. Either they're going to tell the truth or they're going to lie. And either if they choose to tell the truth, you know, whatever that would be, I suspect a lot of them believe that it is not wrong. It was not a wrong. It was not incorrect of them to enslave people, capture people, rape non-white people for centuries. But putting that question out there and kind of forcing them to answer it, I think would be one way to reveal truth. One way to reveal truth. Hmm. Before I continue, and uh, that's something I was thinking about, something that I've been kind of playing around with in my head, because really, if they don't believe that that was an incorrect act, that was injustice, then they they are not going to give non-white people anything. And I mean that seems to be where we've been at, and it seems like where we're continuing to go. But go ahead, Dr. Sinq.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That is basically what he was saying. I One of the things I try to stay away from when I hear racist suspects use um, the word moral or morals, anything that's morally or whatever along those lines. I've always seen that I can't, that word is, there's a lot of deception around the use of that word. And when I looked it up years ago, I discovered I don't have any morals. I absolutely don't have any. Um, and I don't think most people do. It seems to be like a matter of opinion of some one person, what one person thinks morals is different from what another person's morals are. It's just a lot of confusion around that word. So when he said it, I wanted to question him about that, and I did write it down as a question, but of course, as you saw, we never got to that part. But what I noticed is in these discussions that I've had in the past, a lot of racist suspects, they're always pointing to, when they're having the discussion with another non-white person, they're always pointing to non-white people or those who they've told us are non-white people, and what injustice they've done, right? Like he was talking about Genghis Khan, and I was taught that Genghis Khan was a non-white person. I don't know if he was or not, but using that as it's like a misdirection to have me focused on that instead of me thinking about the largest empire on the planet. But what I wanted to say about what I noticed with Japan at the time, it appears that they kept referring to Japan as if Japan was trying to establish yellow supremacy, right? And I noticed that a lot of racist suspects, whenever they're talking about it, they'll tell me like that would have been worse. Like white supremacy is better. White supremacy is better than yellow supremacy. So basically, suck it up and be happy that this is what happened. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, CR.
Okay, the codified response to that is, I know of no one who is more moral than myself. And every non-white person is qualified to say that. I don't know if that's in the new book. I don't even know if it's in the old book, but that comes from conversations with Mr. Fuller, Dr. Wells, and others. That came out of one of the conversations. Because, yeah, you can't have morality in a system of racism, white supremacy. Those two things don't go together. So the codified response to anybody talking about morality is always, I know of no one more moral than myself. And that shuts the conversation down right there. Because there are no moral standards. Dr. V.G.Q spoke about that, the confusion around the words and how morals for some people may be different than than morals are for other people. No, it's just, I know of no one more moral than myself. Yeah, so we can stop talking about morality. I've said that in conversations with white people who've tried them same tricks. I just say it right out. I know of no one more moral than myself. And the conversation just dwindles away after that. I'm off the mic.
Go ahead, Dr. V.Q.
Hey, thanks. That is an excellent suggestion. I'm going to use that. I noticed that whenever when we are having the conversations, if you're having a conversation with the racist suspect, it seems to me that that's the bottom line is to get them to the point to where they don't have any wiggle room to get out of where you're trying to take them. And I like that. So thanks for that suggestion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've heard that before. I think it is a great suggestion. It might be in the list of quotes in the back of the book. Tons of quotes in there for anybody who does not have it. Have the code book. Go to producejustice.com. Get your copy. But I don't know. I don't know if I've heard that somewhere. Maybe I have. Maybe that's why it sounds so logical. Um, but yeah, so using the law of compensation to force the white supremacists to produce justice. I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to use the law of compensation. I'm sure it may be able to be done. It if I was to think about it, I think you can. I think in a lot of conversations with suspected racists, you're constantly asking them to you're asking them for something. In a lot of cases for myself, I'm asking them for the truth. So they will respond with they'll respond with whatever they respond with. Sometimes it may be the truth. Sometimes it may be nothing at all. And then I have to work to compensate for what was given or compensate for the rest. So that could look like me working to get the truth from that racist suspect, and that could be the law of compensation right there. That's what I would like to think. It seems logical to me. Um, so I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, but if the white supremacist has taken responsibility for non-white people, put us under their system, it's only correct to ask for what is needed and then compensate for the rest. That's what the law of compensation requires. Um, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up. I think I might go out with the clip I wanted to play earlier from Mr. Fuller talking about the law of compensation. I know he talked about compensatory investment requests as well, and that's on page 157 of the United Independent Code System Concept. And uh, go ahead, O5.
Yeah, the concept and law of compensation is like the code in general is a highly constructive concept to have in our brain computers. We can also compensate with our and this has been mentioned before. I'm just reiterating. We can compensate with our thought, speech, and action. Racist men and racist women have programmed us to have incorrect thoughts, which lead to incorrect speech and action. So, what the code does, Neely Fuller Jr. code, has given us a ton of things that we can compensate for the damage done to our minds by replacing our thoughts with codified thoughts, which can then become codified behavior and speech. The racists are programming us to be totally confused, unhealthy people. We can compensate from that by maybe attempting to improve our minds with some sort of working out more, eating correctly, compensate by eating correctly. As for what I've been doing, I've attempted to ask for more compensation by white people that I know, ask for money, beg. I have no problem. The code has taught me that if you got to ask more than once, then you're begging. So as a victim of racism, we have to feel no shame or guilt or any incorrect sensations when begging, because due to our victim status, I guess we are default beggars. But yeah, I think I'll pause there.
Much obliged, sir. I stepped away very quickly, so I'm not sure if Joe went first or Dr. Q, but I'll
It's
say
Joe.
okay, go ahead, Joe.
Uh, I just want to apologize for missing the space. I just got off of work and just got in the house, so I just want to apologize. I really didn't have much to say. I will listen to the replay tomorrow or when I get a chance. Thank you.
No problem, sir. Thank you for joining us when you were able to. Much appreciated. Go ahead, Dr. Q.
Yeah, it just made me '05 made me think about, so if it made me think about a conversation the other day that Joe started, a space that Joe started, and we were conversating about resistance to white supremacy. And it seems to me that that's a form of compensation as well. Like, so if we're talking about minimizing the conflict, if the system of white supremacy is always encouraging us as victims to have conflict with other victims, and we practice the 10 stops, or we practice other types of behavior that helps us minimize the conflict between victims, then we're compensating for the lack of peace amongst victims. And that's it.
Agreed. Well said, Dr. Q. The law of compensation is always at work. It's I appreciate the discussion because it's definitely helping me to understand the law of compensation more and understanding it as a universal law and the logic that comes with it. Go ahead, CR.
Yes, and I wanted to say that, yeah, the code book is full of suggestions on how to go about compensating for racial subjugation. That's all it is. Just a whole bunch of suggestions on things to say, things not to say, things to do, things not to do, to go down the path of compensating for being in a system of injustice. And it's about you as an individual non-white person. You know, it's just you. As, you can't count on no other black people to help you. You know, I was in a barbershop one time. We was having a conversation. Oh, I see number 13 got his hand up. So I try to make this quick. He laughing at that. I used to call him that when I first started talking to him. Number 13. That was that's personal to me because I was born on the 13th. Actually, it was a Friday the 13th. You know. I don't know if that tells you something or not, but you know, it's true. So yeah, we was in a barbershop and we were talking about, you know, white white uh, white people and whatnot. And every time somebody would say white people, when they would say it, you know, their voice would go down. You know, they kind of say it under their breath and whatnot. And so this went on, for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes maybe. And so I asked the guy, I said, why are you whispering when you say white people? I said it real loud too. you know? and some people kind of looked. They kind of looked up and whatnot. And he didn't really want to say, but he finally said, because and he said this kind of low too. He said, because if they come in here to get me, y'all ain't gonna help me. See, that's an innate thing. We know that innately. That is just us. Even though we try to, comfort ourselves by thinking that, black people gonna rise up, quote unquote, whatever that means. you know, we innately know that we are alone in this battle as individual people, and I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out something because I am is in the room, but I'll get off the mic now because number 13 has something to say.
Go ahead, 05.
Yeah, excellent story, CR. In regards to compensation, I want to add that whenever a victim of racism is doing anything that makes logical, constructive sense, that could also, I would view that as a form of compensation, because under this system, victims of racism are not supposed to do anything that makes constructive sense, that serves a constructive purpose. So that's also something I'd like to add. And I too once thought my family unit was a mini army, something actually capable of protecting me. But as one gets less confused about the system of white supremacy, clearly obvious that no one can protect non-white people. The best protection one can have is understanding that there is no protection, possibly.
Well said. Yeah, understanding that. Hey, maybe I think that's another form of compensation right there. Understanding your position under the system. Asking. I'm not gonna go through that. I'm gonna think about that one though. That that is important. So there was this quote that I wanted to read real quick, and then if nobody has anything else, I'll just conclude with the clip. May gather some closing thoughts on the clip, and then close out the space. But this is on page 157 of the code book, revised expanded edition. Oh, we got a request. Victor Palmer. Ooh, okay. Let's see. Okay. Mm, okay. Sorry. Okay, so this is on page 157 of the revised expanded edition, and it's in regards to universal compensatory investment request. I'm going to read a portion. I may not read the whole thing, but it says at the bottom of page 156, it says, I believe compensatory investment requests are directly related to the law of compensation. So I thought it's it's relevant to also read this. It says, do your best to guarantee in all others that you will never willfully and deliberately do anything that you know will likely result in your being put into greater confinement for being guilty of anything other than making a compensatory investment request. I wish I would have found a compensatory investment request to define that, but if anybody else does. Okay. Making a compensatory investment request means to ask white people for whatever help that you need in order to produce constructive results. These requests may include receiving necessary food, shelter, transportation, medical care, constructive teaching, etc. When asking white people for constructive help, compensatory investment requests, always do so with courtesy and without using violence or the threat of violence against them or their helpers. A universal compensatory investment request applies to every non-white person in the known universe who, because of the harmful effects of white supremacy racism, is not adequately able to constructively help him or herself. It is incorrect to make a universal compensatory investment request if the person making the request has the ability, mental and physical, to do the constructive work that will result in his or her receiving the constructive help that he or she needs. Notes: it is correct to make this request only from white people and or only from those white people that are likely engaging in the practice of white supremacy. It is incorrect to rob or steal from anyone for any reason. The system of white supremacy is designed to force or entice non-white people to rob, steal, or so-called beg. It is not designed to allow non-white people to be self-supporting. Since robbing and stealing is worse than begging, it is better to be punished for so-called begging for justice than punished for robbing or stealing. It is better to want for things or beg for what one needs than to rob or steal to get those things or to satisfy those needs. Considering all things, non-white people should most certainly not be guilty of robbing or stealing. The person who chooses to make a compensatory investment request must be prepared to suffer ridicule, get greater deprivation, and possibly death of doing so. So, interesting thoughts on a compensatory investment request. One question I guess I had for Mr. Fuller was where it says a compensatory investment request applies to every non-white person in the known universe because of the effects of white supremacy is not at sorry, that's not it. It says it is not correct to make a universal compensatory investment request if the person making the request has the ability, mental and physical, to do the constructive work that will result in his or her receiving the constructive help that he or she needs. So I guess I guess my question to Mr. Fuller would be in regards to that, but I would imagine that the each non-white person has to, I guess, decide for themselves whether they have the ability, mental and or physical, to do the constructive work that will get them the help that they need in regards to that. But I would ask Mr. Fuller, I guess, what he meant when he put that in there. Um, I wasn't looking at my screen, so I don't know who put their hand up first.
Oh, five, I think.
Okay, go ahead, O5.
Yeah, I really do appreciate the concept of compensatory investment request. Because it's definitely something all non-white people need to do. Ask white people for help. I have had this my former UC Berkeley professor, and as I got and when I was more confused, I saw him as a sort of a mentor figure. Now I'm less confused. Those feelings have changed, but I decided to ask him for a compensatory investment request because he's a retired Berkeley professor. I assume he has um, a lot of resources that he can help me with. So I asked him. Yeah, I scheduled a meeting for him. This is pretty recent. I scheduled a meeting with him. We talked for a good while. At the end of the meeting, I asked him for a compensatory investment request. I asked him for a sort of a allowance that if he can give me some sort of allowance. And then he said he'd think about it. Fast forward some time, he he gave me a number, and then he eventually sent over the help. I don't think I think the help was not adequate, but it was some help. So definitely would encourage. And I've asked more white people for compensatory investments, and they have been successful. Sometimes I faced being laughed at or whatnot. What was suggested that would happen. So that has happened to me, but have no problem. We're already victims of racism. Our existences are already quite pitiful. So what's asking for a little help?
Agreed. Dr. Sinki, did you have anything to add? I know you had your hand up before.
Oh yeah, I was hoping I'd be able to find it while O5 was talking, but there is a oh here it is. I found a Facebook group that's a victim of white supremacy established for compensatory investment requests, basically. But it's called where is it at? It's called reparations requests and offerings. But um, she's pulled together a bunch of a number of white people who have said that they're willing to help uh, non-white people if they go to this. So they go to this website. I mean, to this Facebook group, and you post whatever it is that you need help with, and you know, supposedly, I mean, I haven't done it yet, but um, according to the news report that I saw where she was being interviewed, and some of the white people in the group have contributed to the non-white people who are asking for help. Um, so I wanted to say that, and then when I first had that, I wanted to say when I first had the conversation with Mr. Fuller about compensatory investment requests, um, I immediately went on YouTube and made a video. This was about 20 years ago. YouTube deleted my video. Like I had it up there so I could constantly do it, but um, within when I first put it up, it was like within a few minutes of me putting it up, a white person gave me $500. But I haven't done another video since, but I think I'll do another one. So I'd highly recommend that too. You know, that people post those investment requests to get that help. And that was it.
And a compensatory investment request success story. I I also had I'd also asked a white person once for compensatory investment request. Uh, I wanted the white person to write a grant for me. I haven't, I guess, cashed in on that yet, but I may look to do that in the future. I also understand that it doesn't always have to be only money. You know, it could also be, you know, labor. You know, so Joe, go ahead.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask Dr. Q, is it possible you can like share that link to the lady with the reparations thing, or send it to my DM? I don't know how you can do it for everybody, but if you can share that, that'd be great.
I think he said the group name was Reparations Request and Offering. I could be incorrect, but I don't know
Okay.
if you'd be able to find it on your own, or if Dr. Sinki will shoot that to you. That'd
Yeah,
be
hopefully. I see
constructive.
Victor Palmer of Victor. He does the YouTube videos. Is here. Thank God. That's thank the creator. That's nice.
Okay, go ahead, Victor Palmer. Ooh, I don't. Oh, hold on. I I don't know if it was only me, but he was breaking up a lot.
Sounded like a robot there.
Yeah. It shows he's trying to connect again. Dr. Sinki, did you hear Joe?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, so it's reparations requests and offerings on Facebook, and yeah, I don't even know how to share it. It's a private group. So what you do is you click on it when you go to it, you click invite, and you explain to her, because she doesn't want any, she only wants non-white people in the group to ask for requests and offerings. So you just hit the invite, and then I guess go through the process of letting her see how you're a non-white person.
I'm trying to write it down. So it's reparations.
Offerings,
Okay,
oh,
offerings.
reparations,
Uh huh.
requests, and offerings.
Or requests and offerings. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I sent Victor another invite. Um, what was the? Is it the Just a Vor? Is that the YouTube channel you're talking about, Joe?
Victor of RWS, the one with Mr. Fuller. He posts every week of Mr. Fuller's whole broadcast.
Oh, oh
Yes,
yeah.
very
Okay.
very helpful
Oh,
because
that's who
Yeah.
that is.
yes, it
Yeah.
makes it much easier to listen to his broadcast that way. I like it. It's
Oh
on
yeah.
YouTube too, so it makes more. It's an easier access than sometimes going to producejustice.com. It's a much
Oh,
easier access.
okay. Yeah. Thank you, Victor, for your work. I find it extremely constructive and hope you continue. I've definitely used that archive a lot of times, so I think I might even be using it right now for that clip. So check out Victor. Is it RWS?
Yeah, Victor of RWS.
Yeah, Victor of RWS. Appreciate it. Um, if I don't have any other comments right now, I'll play the clip.
Wait, hold on. I think
Okay.
um that's really interesting that white people have set up a Facebook group to attempt to help victims. If white people were more serious about helping non-white people, I think they'd be more initiatives like that. White people are very smart. They have ways to give money to people and then write it off as like a donation or a charitable donation or something like that. There should be like billions, millions of white people who are, trying to give as much constructive help to non-white people as possible. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to find that group, and but yeah, white people are very smart, and if they wanted to help non-white people effectively, they'd be doing that way at greater rates.
Go ahead, CR. I don't know if you were done 05.
Was he done?
I did mute, so yes.
Okay. Yeah, they white people have been doing that for a long time. Um, long before there even was a Facebook. They had websites out there that they were doing that. So, I mean, it's not anything new, of course, but yeah, if you're able to get some money, you know, um, there was a lady at the Wilson Institute, a white lady that used to attend the Wilson Institute called Cloud Song.
Cloud
That
song. Yeah.
Yeah, that was her internet name. She was giving away money. Yeah, she was giving away money. And some of the people on counterracism.com got some money from her too. So it's a lot of white people out there that are doing that, and they're going to continue to do that. They'll rather give you some money than to give you justice.
Mm.
Just something to think about. I'm off the mic.
I had my hand up. I just wanted to say real quick, if you're connected with me on Facebook, just DM me and I will invite you to the group. Because I see that she gave me I can invite people to join the group. I also want to say that to clear up the confusion, it's not a white person that set the site up. It's a victim of white supremacy who set it up.
Great. Wonderful. Interesting. Yeah, I suspect white people will probably continue doing that because the evidence suggests it's not producing justice. So they'll definitely keep those efforts up. Probably does more to confuse non-white people than actually inform them.
But I mean, if you need it, you know, if
Accept
you,
what is given.
Hmm.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And compensate for the difference.
Hmm.
Um, oh, I wanted to say something to I am. We were having a conversation on on Twitter earlier, and I don't think that he or she knows that they answered their own question, and it's in reference to uh, the law of compensation. Actually, I think he or she. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but they were making reference to the Creator. A lot of people say, prayer ain't gonna do you any good, and things like that. So when we was having this conversation, I was I mentioned that faith without works is dead. I don't know if he or she had ever heard that before. Um, and that's you could be asking the Creator for something, you know, and accept what is granted. But you got to put in the work. You know what I'm saying? You can't just sit back and think something's going to be given to you. You got to put in the work, bro. And a lot of non-white people don't want to do that or don't know how to do that or for any number of reasons. But in order to compensate for something that you don't have, you have to put in the work. That should always be part of the equation. I'm off the mic.
I am. Good.
Thank you, TR, for that clarification. And I did understand your responses earlier. And I am putting in the work. But there are one or more things that I am confused about. And I figure the more that I ask questions, the more the answer itself will be revealed to me in time. I'm off the mic.
Yes, sir. And thank you for the conversation. Are you?
I was going through the quotes in the back of the book, and I saw a quote that mentioned praying, and I was trying to find it so I could say it for verbatim, but if I remember it correctly, it was something working to produce justice is a type of prayer, something like that. Just because you mentioned praying, uh, somebody did earlier.
Oh, I don't want to turn this into no religious conversation now.
No.
I was just making mention of that because was in the room and we were talking about that earlier. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Understood. Okay. All right, so I'll just play this clip. Um, you know, yeah, I'll play the clip. Feel free if you don't want to stick around for for your comments or anything. That's fine too. Would appreciate your comments. But I'll just play the clip from the broadcast from April 26th, 2017. Mr. Fuller's talking about the law of compensation and compensatory investment requests.
This started. Mr. Fuller, on page 156, we're speaking about the law in the system of racism. You wrote this.
Real quick, everybody can hear that, right?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
hear.
Okay.
Yep.
Do your best to guarantee yourself and all others that you will never willfully and deliberately do anything that you know will likely result in your being put into greater confinement for being guilty of any other than making a compensatory investment request. Could you pick up right underneath there at the end, at the bottom of 156? Making a compensatory investment request means to ask white people for whatever help that you need in order to produce the most constructive results. These requests may include receiving necessary food, shelter, transportation, medical care, constructive teaching, etc., etc., etc. When asking white people for constructive help, and I call it compensatory investment requests, always do so with courtesy and without using violence or the threat of violence against them or their helpers. A universal compensatory investment request applies to every non-white person in the known universe who, because of the harmful effects of white supremacy, is not adequately able to constructively help himself or herself. It is incorrect to make a universal compensatory investment request if the person making the request has the ability, as mental or physical, yes, sir, to do the constructive work that will result in his or her receiving the constructive help that he or she needs. Now, this compensatory investment request is nothing but what black people do in the prison system of white supremacy anyway. The entire system of white supremacy is a prison system. So all you're doing is just making a request of the wardens, the guards, the administrators of the prison. You're just asking for what you need, because that's what prisoners of war do. Yes, sir. When you're a prisoner of war, you just ask for the things that you need. But you don't violate any of the prison rules in the process of trying to get it yourself, because you're already in prison. What I call something like that, that is greater confinement. That's what, in a compensatory sense, we call greater confinement, because if you are a person of color, you're already confined when you're born. You're born in prison. You are already a prisoner of war. Since the beginning of white supremacy, any person classified as non-white is born into a system that is already in place. It's called the government or the system of white supremacy.
Yes.
And that is a prison system for people of color.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
With everything that goes into, making up a prison. So anything that you want while you're in that prison, it's best just to ask for it. Don't try to steal it. Don't try to take it. Because the administrators of this prison, this world prison that we're in, know how you're going about doing it. They know how to catch you.
Yes.
Sometimes they just let you go because they really don't think it's that important. What you did wasn't that important at the time. But if they really want to catch you, they know how their prison is run, meaning the world prison. And they can get you anywhere you go.
Yes, sir.
If you're a person of color.
Okay.
And they know how you do what you do. If you're stealing something, if you work in an institution or something like that, and you think you can steal something and they don't know what you're doing, they are the masters of thievery. They steal whole people, whole continents, and have done it. They know how it's done. They know how all theft is done.
Yes, sir.
So this little running around robbing and stealing that black people do all over the world, non-white people, in the prison system of white supremacy, they know exactly how you're going about doing it, and they know how far you can go while you're doing it.
Okay.
And they also know what punishment they can put on you for doing it, and they can catch you, and will.
And will catch you.
Yes, that's a given.
Okay.
So we should already know that by now.
Okay.
You can't get away with that stuff.
All right. Now, you say that near the bottom of the page, you said that when talking about the best and correct thing to say about greater confinement, that is jail, prison, etc., say the following. All right. Could you read that at the bottom of page 157?
Yes, what do you say about that when talking about the best and correct thing to say about greater confinement, meaning jail, prison, etc.? During the existence of white supremacy, any non-white person who willfully and deliberately does anything that he or she knows is likely to result in being put into greater confinement should expect to be put into greater confinement, and while there should expect no mercy, no comfort, and no help in being released. In other words, if you're out here doing something that you think might get you arrested, don't just assume that you're not going to make your situation worse.
Right.
Just, you must assume that your situation is not going to get better, that your situation is going to get worse. Now, I'm talking worldwide now. Anytime you're so-called arrested, don't just assume, well, I can act tough and all like that, and I can be tough, because now that I'm arrested, I'm going to show these people how much power I got, and I can take care of business, because I know some people, and I know this, and I know that. Don't assume that you know anything of the kind, because you most likely will not get what you think you're going to get, and you're going to get a whole lot of what you didn't want. See, so that's why I say, to the extent, to the best of your ability, get this notion out of your head of thinking that after you get those cuffs on you, you got a lot going for you. Assume just the opposite, that you got everything going against you.
Okay.
That way you'll be more of a thinker about what to do and what not to do to make your situation worse.
All righty. Now, from this point on, or at least for the next maybe week or so, we are going to go very slow because the words or suggestions here are very important. Let's start off at the top of page 158. And then the question is, this is what you wrote. What is the correct thing to do about a non-white person who uses deadly violence or the threat of deadly violence to gain money and or material possessions from a non-white person. And continue with the answer, please, sir.
Okay, on page 158, it says, as long as racism exists, that's white supremacy, a non-white person who uses deadly violence or the threat of deadly violence to gain money or material possessions, that's robbed it, from a non-white person, should be put into total greater solitary confinement until such time as he or she chooses to kill himself or herself, or until such time as all violence by non-white people against non-white people comes to an end throughout the known universe.
Explain that. Killing black.
That's exactly what I mean. You kill somebody, you should be put into what I call compensatory greater confinement. That's black people. I mean, all this killing that they got going on in what we call Chicago right now and throughout the world, Uganda, wherever it is, when you're caught and it's actually proven that you did it. Now, lots of people are charged falsely. Lots of people are locked up.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure that you have the correct person.
Okay.
This person killed another black person in a robbery, trying to rob that person. Or what you might call just for fun or for glory, which is what most killing is about. A lot of it is connected with not gaining something that you desperately have to have, but it's about some type of fun or some type of what they call beef. You know, you insulted me or something like that. You do that willfully and deliberately and unjustly. I'm not talking about self-defense. Kill another person. Go seek it, walking around with a gun.
Yes.
Seeking a person to kill. You should be put in compensatory greater confinement and kept there in solitary. That should be automatic all over the world. In other words, you have shown that you're not eligible to talk to anybody once you are convicted of this. You are not entitled to ever speak to anybody again. Why? Because the person that you kill can't speak to anybody again. That's what you call compensatory logic. We got to be serious about this. You killed a person. That person is not here. That person is not breathing. You think you should be going around talking to people when that person that you killed unjustly is not talking to anybody? No, you get the same thing that you put out. So you're put in solitary confinement. You don't even talk to a guard because the guard is prohibited from talking to you.
Okay.
You are put into what you call ironclad solitary confinement, where you don't talk to anybody but yourself, because that's who you earn. You earn the duty to talk to yourself. Now you're kept there and fed at least once a day, a decent meal through a trapdoor, and you stay there talking to yourself, and you have a companion in there because you used a weapon to kill somebody with. Now the modern day will make it easy. You'll have the gun that you use to kill the person with, that they can find it, or something similar to it. And if you use a knife, that might be too messy. But your companion will be whatever instrument you use to kill another person with. That will be in that cell, in that greater confinement with you.
Why is that?
Oh, because that's your companion. You have shown that's your best friend. By using that your best friend to kill somebody, to take somebody else out of this world. So that is your companion. I mean, you and your companion should really love each other in that cell, because that's what you're going to be talking to from now on, your companion in crime, in killing, in robbing, in gangbanging.
Okay.
That is your partner.
Okay.
And you'll have one bullet in there. Now, when you decide to use your companion, you'll make a contract, because you had a contract before when you did that other killing. That was your contract with you and your good buddy. That 9mm, whatever brand of semi-automatic pistol or revolver, whatever it was. 5 years or whatnot, and then a person, usually unknown, is hired to kill you after you have done this killing. No, you kill somebody, you kill yourself. That's the way that works. You kill somebody, that's the compensatory way. You kill yourself, and you do it at your own pace, because you killed that other person at your own pace. That other person wasn't ready to go, but you are given something that the other person didn't have. You can kill yourself anytime you get ready. So you're fed, and you stay in there talking to your companion, because that's the only object that you're going to be talking to other than the Creator. Okay. You're not going to have nothing else in that cell. Okay. You don't need the reading material because you ain't going nowhere.
Alrighty. TalkTimidRadio.com is.
The law of compensation. Compensatory logic, as Mr. Fuller said. Well said from Mr. Fuller. I think a great summary of the law of compensation, how it works. I originally did not intend to go for so long, but I think I'm glad I did. I think it definitely captured the point. Even while under a system of racism, white supremacy, injustice is still injustice, no matter who you are. No matter if you're a victim, no matter if you're a white person, racist suspect, or a white supremacist. Injustice is injustice, and it must be compensated for. Oh, kind of going back to justice compensates for injustice. Look at that. Okay. Any thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts, comments? If not, I'll go ahead and close out the space. Going once.
Yeah, excellent clip. Fuller's Fuller's view and concepts on maximum compensatory confinement. That maybe that would do a lot to deter um the mistreatment, killing. Maybe that would do a lot if non-white people knew that they would face that sort of punishment for killing another non-white person, or not. But yeah, the way that the racist suspects have greater confinement set up, it's very much like, yeah, you could totally, go on a rampage, harm a lot of people, and if you're not put in, like, ADX, maximum security prison, you could kind of have a pleasant time in the booty house. From what I've observed, it's very um sometimes fun in greater confinement, or at least the racists have made it
Mm-hmm.
fun in greater confinement. Unfortunately, members of my care unit who have spent over 30 years in greater confinement, and they reported that no, absolutely, it is not fun to go to the booty house. But I'll pause there.
I wanted to say that as far as greater confinement is, and black people, all black people being in prison, so all of the people of color on the planet are in prison. So I'm currently in the concept of Canada. So Canada doesn't actually exist because there are no Canadians. There are no Canadians that practice justice. So this is the kind of concept that the code is. You're actually in a prison. You're not. You are not in greater confinement. Permits want to put you there for whatever reasons that they like. But whenever you step out of your house, you're actually in a prison yard. because the whole entire world is a prison. So
His connection is bad.
Yeah, it was good, and then it's kind of going out now, Victor.
yeah,
I
so
can't hear you at all anymore, Victor. Okay.
okay.
Thank you for what I did here. Constructive thoughts. CR.
Yeah, hey, I think Mr. Fuller did an excellent job on that clip of explaining that environment, um, environment that he came up with too. I mean, he has spoken in great length about, and I don't know if is that in his uh, most recent book. Was he talk about that?
Yeah, he was reading from the pages in the book. I read a snippet earlier, and it goes on an area. I forget what number area law is. Area
Okay.
5. Yeah, page one. He's reading from page 156 to 158.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have that book, but I've heard him talk about that, um, and we were fortunate enough to be able to ask him different questions and whatnot uh, in person. When he, I mean, years and years before the book even came out, he said it would be in his book. I was just wondering if it was actually there. He paints a grim picture. you know, I mean, he says it's just a hole in the floor. That's your restroom.
Mm,
And you don't get no toilet paper. you know.
damn.
oh yeah. He makes it sound bad. And nobody wants to go to that prison. Um, but yeah, I hope he put all of that in his most recent book. I'm off the mic.
Sivas.
Thank you. Thank you for having this space. I have partly a question that could compensation also be by way of giving? Uh, that is, like, I drive what it's called a truck driver, a commercial motor vehicle. And just generally, I don't know how much so nowadays, but as I learn and come up, uh, learning in this field, um, persons would help each other, white and black. So, but now sometimes, sometimes folks will help you just to get you out their way. You know what I mean? As far as that goes, but there might be a thing where someone has got to hold that crowbar for the tensioner belt, tensioner arm, so you get the belt on, or you just someone's got to crank while you tap on a starter. Somebody had happened similar. So a lot of times that happens. So, and I guess my question was like, well, can compensation also be what I'm able to give if I'm able to give it? Talking to if I'm able to give to a non-white to black people, and I think about this time where this lady's one of those things where it's like a little bit of rain and then it froze, and so she slipped. So, and her bag kind of things went rolling around. And rather than just grabbing her, I asked, can I help you? You know, and she almost was hesitant for a little bit, uh, you know, but, or if someone, if I'm able to, which is rare, especially rare nowadays, you know, to give something that someone asked me for something, man, I use $50. Like, oh, okay, if I got it, here it is. And I don't consider it mine anymore. I'm not like, man, I loaned you that money. You're supposed to. No. If I give it, I don't even consider it mine no more. If you give it back, fine. If you don't, fine. Or there was one time very recently, uh, male was making me a sandwich. So I say, hey, can I bless the man of God? You know, and like that. Or it might be another time. He said, I got you, I'll hook you up. So I was wondering, and I do it not for my own thing, although it feels good to do it, but that's not why. It's because uh, if it's a small thing where I could feel a need, then I do it like that. So I just was wondering, is that part of, and that was my question, is law compensation? Yes, also getting, but is it also giving, especially to other victims, other black people, other non-white folks? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Sivas. To be honest, I'm not sure. In the example you used about somebody helping you or you helping somebody, uh, knock the crankshaft or something along those lines, I could see that being the law of compensation. I don't know if there's a law of reciprocation. There might be. Um, I personally don't view like compensation only being like money or anything in any one item or one form of something, I guess. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's interesting. I could see how it might be the law of compensation. It'd be something I would have to think about. So yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you for sharing. Victor,
I would like to piggyback off of Seva's comment about when non-white people are trying to help each other. In the system of racism, white supremacy, the white supremacists have put poison into our minds. That's why having a code is essential. So we have to have a pre-plan to what are we gonna say? What are we gonna do? And we have to think about that before we say anything, especially when we're talking to other non-white people, because of the tragic arrangement, as Mr. Fuller calls that poison, that buck breaking that they put into us, that training. It's so hard to break the training because I mean I've been listening to Mr. Fuller for about 15 years, and it took me 10 years to understand what true self-respect is. And and back to what Siva was saying is sometimes the the biggest pain that I feel is when another non-white person tries to hurt me, and I know it hurts because I take it personal, which is something where I could probably create a code for that. So I can come up with the code to say, okay, I understand that I'm in a system of racism, white supremacy. If another non-white person harms me, I should not take it personally. I should just understand that this is how we've been trained, and I can create a code of how to minimize how much I get hurt, because within the system of racism, white supremacy, there is so much harm out there. So, we just have to keep creating codes for each area. So when we're relating to people, that would be the area of politics, people relations. So I would create a code. Okay, when I just say if I met up with Seva and he asked me to help, but in my mind I'm thinking of robbing him, but Seva doesn't know that. Well, Seva would have to create a code to, he could try to help a non-white person, but he'll think about how much he can do and actually protect himself because he understands of that tragic that tragic arrangement that Mr. Fuller talks about. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight or earlier, and thank you for joining the space. Greatly appreciate all of your time and energy. Thank you for sharing. The law of compensation. This was very constructive for me, and I hope you found it constructive as well. Please go get your copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a compensatory counter-racist code, shortly known as the Code Book by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go to producejustice.com, visit counterracism.com, check out Dr. Sinq's YouTube channel, Victor of Racism White Supremacy's channel. Check out all attempted counter-racist uh, programming and broadcasting. Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and close the space and looking forward to speaking with all of you again in the future. Thank you. Stay safe and maintain